from LaserLemming.com, and Tetris Ultimate is hitting the Xbox One, the PlayStation 4, the PlayStation Vita, and the 3DS. The 3DS version is coming out very soon. The other versions are coming out later in the winter time. It's being published by Ubisoft, but who gives a shit? The important part here is that the 3DS version is going to be released both in retail and digitally. That's nothing new. That happens to pretty much practically every single game these days. What's significant here is that the publisher, Ubisoft, has done something ballsy. They have decided to release the retail version at a higher cost than the digital version. What a novel concept! What a novel concept! Why didn't anybody think of this before? Actually, it's been done a few times, but it's very rare. And the reason for this is because it pisses off retailers. Now let's get into this. The $30 version is the retail version. If you want to get it digitally, it's $20. This makes sense. Why does it make sense? Because retail costs more money for a publisher to put out a game on. They have to come out with physical packaging, they have to distribute it, and they have to get retailers to put space up for it. So they have to spend money. They have to spend money to make a physical package. A lot of people don't understand this. So they have to spend money to make a physical package because the game itself does not cost $60 for the retailer. The retailer charges you $60 for a game because they have to make up for how much they spent on it. They have to make a profit. So, this game is $20 digitally. That's a $10 discount. That's an incentive to buy digitally. And not only is it a discount, but I'd wager that Ubisoft is making more money when you buy it at $20 than when you buy it at $30. Because the retailer is probably spending about $16, $17 per copy of the game. They're not making a ton of money on that game either, but they want to sell you large quantities of it. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this pisses off retailers because this is saying, hey, your space is limited, your time is limited. Brick and mortar stores are going out the window. We don't need you as much anymore. Digital is the future. Now, this scares a lot of people, myself included, because especially when it comes to handheld games like little cartridges, because they tend to last longer. They tend to be more future-proof than a scratchable CD or DVD or Blu-ray, which aren't as scratchable. But this pisses them off. This pisses them off. And I understand why. I understand completely why. Because it's a haunting, looming cloud that's saying, you're going to be gone soon. Or we want you gone. Or we don't want you in this business. And retailers have kind of played nice with publishers and video game hardware makers by, providing things like eShop points or Xbox Live cards because that gets you into the store. But they're making very little, if any, money at all on those cards because you're essentially buying money. And when you're buying money, it's a lot harder to say, hey, give me a take of that. So, they've been playing nice just to get people into their stores. But when you do something like this, this is a ballsy move saying, like, you know what? We're going to try to get people to buy this game outside of your store. And so I'm interested because when this sort of thing typically happens, retail strikes back and they say, you know what, fuck you. We're not carrying your game. We're not going to carry your game. And in this case, I think Ubisoft might be testing the waters with it a little bit because the 3DS version is coming out soon, so they're putting this option out there. And if retailers refuse to carry this game, the 3DS version that is, they might back down. They might not do this with the Xbox One, the PS4, and the Vita version. And I don't even know if that even touches the idea of Sony or Microsoft allowing them to do that sort of thing. But hey, let's get back to the original point here. Why doesn't this happen more often? You have Microsoft, which came out in May 2013, stating that this was the future. That digital was the future. You could buy a retail game, but it was essentially going to become a digital game. The disc was pointless. It was just a method to get the license. That's all it was. And they dropped that, but that was their plan. And do you think they had any intentions of selling you the digital version of that game cheaper than at retail? No, because A, they didn't want to piss off retailers any more than they already had, and they did piss off retailers. GameStop stores around the country were telling people, fuck the Xbox One, get something else. And so Microsoft backed down on that. But they wouldn't have. If they didn't back down, those games would still cost just as much, if not more, than they would at retail. Well, they wouldn't cost more digitally, but they would definitely remain at parity cost-wise. And they would be no different than any other company that would do this. I think Sony would have did the same thing. If they were doing what Microsoft had originally intended to do with the Xbox One, they would be selling games at $60 too, regardless of whether or not they were physical or digital. Even though that their costs were lower, understand this, doesn't matter who I'm talking about, even though their costs are lower when they don't have to create a physical product, they would still charge you the same amount of money. Why? Because they make more money doing so. They get higher profit margins. And you shouldn't like that. You should understand why all of this stuff happens, but you shouldn't like it. So I'm really interested in this. I give kudos to Ubisoft for putting this out there and trying a different model, because no, you don't get to hold a physical product that you know for sure 100% that you are going to be able to keep forever. You don't know that. You don't know that when you have a digital game. It's not secure, but you are getting it at a discount, and you're not spending as much money as you would have. $10 can go towards another game. What do you think? I know I'm going mile a minute here, but I'm very interested to know what you think about this topic. Do you think that more games should do this? Do you think that more publishers specifically should push to have a cheaper version of a digital game? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.